is I will share the link with everyone. Um, okay, yeah, I can see it on the Twitter. I'll put it in our chat if you want to send it to people 21.
We're live.
Yep, we are live right now. Let me send it to a real community. And we started getting people as well. So we have 100 people so far.
Naruto, you need to start writing like good icebreakers.
Huh. Yeah, definitely. I need to work on those. But anyway, let's try. For this one, we'll just have this like basic introductions. I'm sorry about that. I need some good icebreakers. I'll take that feedback. Hey guys, I am Naruto. I'm gonna be your host for this crypto DevRel chat this time. We have four amazing people today with us, and this is the reason why wanted a lot of people on the DevRel space because DevRel is like a very hot topic right now in the industry. Web3 people, a lot of people who were devs, they want to move to DevRel. A lot of BD people are trying to move to DevRel. So we just wanted to get in a lot of people, a lot of guests who have insights and who've been DevRel for a long time. So yeah, I'll go with the introductions. Anyone who want to go first, please feel free to.
I think, man, your mic is getting muffled a bit.
Yeah, I'm working on it. But yeah, Anmol, go with your introduction, and then
Perfect.
Kanesh, and then Patrico, and then Patrick.
Sure. So, hey, folks, I'm Anmol. I like eating fruits, but to get to what I do more professionally, I work as the ecosystem lead at Stackr. It is a bunch of roles combined, like marketing, BD, partnerships, developer onboarding, event logistics, and planning, like setting goals, KPIs, etc. But yeah, excited to be here live on the Avail Hot Takes event for some steamy takes.
Hey everyone, my name is Kanishk. I'm the head of DevRel at Fleek. My role varies a lot from coding out for 24 hours sometimes to sometimes just being at events to sometimes helping people on ground to sometimes being online on Discord for hours and hours just helping developers with architectures, with front ends, back ends, smart contracts, whatever they are interested in. I've been a dev for almost 6 years now, and my interest lies in JavaScript, Rust. I'm very platform or framework independent, and those are the kind of things I do and the kind of things that interest me. I'm super excited to be here, and as Anmol said, time to drop some spicy takes. Thank you.
Fede, is it you, Fede, or
Go. I'll go.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah. So my name is Patrick Skinner. I'm the lead DevRel for Forward Research. Essentially, my job is pretty much anything inside of the Arweave ecosystem, working with communities and other projects in Arweave. So my role kind of entails a little bit of everything. I've done everything from live coding tutorials, obviously, video coding tutorials. I run a show called the Testnet Show. But I also, behind the scenes, I do a lot of business development pipeline work for projects that are, looking for support from various communities inside of Arweave. And so, I mean, it's a little bit of everywhere. I do a little bit of coding here, a little BD, little DevRel, little community stuff. So, and obviously content creation. So I'm kind of everywhere, but I am hiring. So just keeping that in mind. If anyone that is looking for a current or a new DevRel role, just keeping that up there. But yeah, anyways, go ahead, Fede.
Thanks, Patrick. So hey everyone, I'm Fede. I'm head of DevRel at Mode Network, which is layer 2, built with the OP stack. We're part of the super chain, the chain ecosystem vision that Optimism has for the future. We're EVM compatible, and we're the DeFi hub for the super chain. So we're super focused on DeFi and excited about innovation in DeFi. Same as Patrick and everyone here, I do a little BD, a little support with ecosystem partners, relationships with them, workshops, events, ambassador programs as well that we have if anyone's interested. and any other random developer that's wanting to test mode or build something, founders, etc. I'm usually a good point of contact there, and happy to be here and ready to give some hot takes as well. I hope we fight a lot today.
You were promised blood.
Yeah, we were all promised blood. I think Naruto still may be changing out his mic, so I'm just gonna jump into the first question because we've got a little bit of an understanding of what's going on. We've already introduced ourselves and everything, but and the question says we all know what DevRel is, but the definition changes from org to org and people to people. What is your definition of DevRel? I'll let Kanish start.
Thank you, Patrick. I feel that DevRel is somebody who's a developer. They definitely have a technical background, but they also like to help developers. They also like to learn actively and teach actively. I feel that DevRel is a person who has to actively help developers on board onto the technologies. And this could be any technology. It doesn't have to be just the tech stack that you represent or the tech stack that you work for. It could very well be, just a framework. So, for example, I'm a big advocate for Next.js. I think it's a beautiful framework. It's extremely well built. I'm a big advocate for JavaScript as well. And of course, throughout this process, I'm also an advocate for Fleek. So I feel that DevRel is somebody who is a developer themselves, can speak to devs, can convey their thoughts to a large amount of communities, and also be a community leader of sorts. And every company has their own definition of a DevRel, as you just mentioned. So in my opinion, a full stack DevRel would be somebody who can code, who can talk to people, who can do a bit of BD, who can do a bit of ecosystem management, ambassador management, a lot of things. I feel that is what a DevRel to me is, and that is what I aspire to be in the long run as well.
So I'll take the next one, I guess. So I guess where we all met in the crypto DevRel group, where we all were introduced to each other, a person called Mando Next. I think he was the ex DevRel of Chai Network, if I'm not wrong. He basically said a definition that I was pretty impressed by, which is that a DevRel is the most empathetic person in the group. And I'll just yoink that definition, that a DevRel is basically the connect between the developers, the product team, and the outside world, which is basically developers that are interfacing with the SDK or the product. And their job is to basically interface in a manner where they lower the barrier of entry for developers, regardless of what the product is. So the job varies from org to org, but it is generally, for me, it has been, be it educational content in the form of blogs or videos, or public speaking, or in general just community building, like groundwork and grunt work, such as setting tables for an event, getting the merch printed. Everything is a DevRel's job. So I think it is a pretty vast definition, but yeah, varies org from org.
I can maybe add a little bit. Like, I agree with you guys' definition in general, but what I like to use as a clear definition for DevRel, and it's sometimes hard because one thing is the theory, the other thing is reality, what the day-to-day life looks like for a DevRel in each ecosystem. I like one, while doing my research, while learning on DevRel some time ago, I remember I saw Apple first. I think it was called a software evangelist, which is kind of similar where DevRel comes from. And they gave a definition, something along the lines of winning over third-party developers and convincing them or persuading them to develop software or use your platform without the incentives of money, right? So it's basically convincing or persuading or giving enough arguments for developers to use your protocol, your SDK, your whatever you're building or whatever you're advocating for. And I really like that definition because in a day-to-day, it may be easy to just give money for someone to build on your stack, but then you look at React, you look at, I don't know, regular technologies that we use and frameworks, JavaScript, whatever, and they may have bounties, they may have grants, but usually they just have a good technology, a good community, a good ecosystem that just brings more developers in. And yeah, I just really like that definition. That's what I usually use. Patrick?
Yeah, so I'm just gonna go right into the spicy takes with this question. All right, so a lot of people say that it differs from org to org, or maybe in whatever ecosystem you're in or whatever. Personally, I think it differentiates between how many people are in the DevRel team or if you're running solo, because and not only just that too, but it's also the other teams you work with and how do those teams exist. Because trust me, I mean, if you're a solo DevRel, you're doing a lot, and then on top of that, if you've got maybe one BD guy, something like that, guess who's also doing BD? Yeah, that's you too. So if you're a solo DevRel, you're not a DevRel, you're a freaking entrepreneur. That's what you are. And because you're going to be running around, you're going to be helping the marketing team. You're going to be helping BD. You're going to be running all DevRel stuff. You're going to be jack of all trades and doing everything you can to not get fired for being a master of none. That's like that's basically what's going to happen as a solo DevRel. But if you're on as a DevRel, if you're on a team, then you're going to probably break down to like 3, 4, 5 different things that you really focus on and just focus on those. So like it's a huge difference when doesn't matter what ecosystem you're in or whatever project you're in. If you're a solo DevRel, the biggest difference is, being a solo DevRel versus being on a multi-team or a multi-person team of DevRels. That's honestly the biggest difference to me.
Yeah, I think I saw someone's tweet. I think it was Grinza, basically saying that whenever you are like a DevRel role, you're suddenly like, a social media manager or like an event planner, technical support, everything, right? So the basic idea is like the DevRels are doing so much stuff. But yeah, like, I definitely agree that like a DevRel is more or less a whole department rather than like, just doing one thing. And people don't realize that. So anyway, let's move on to a next question, which is I want to, before we deep dive into some really spicy takes on DevRel, I want to know what problems you guys are solving in your current org, what your current org is doing, just so like a quick rundown. So Patrick, you want to go first, and then we'll go with Federico, and then move on to other people.
Yeah, we're obviously in the ROV ecosystem. We're solving lots of different problems. One of those permanent, the permanence of data, as well as censorship resistance, things like that. That's a really big deal over in ROV. On top of that, it's it's kind of a full stack. Those that know us, you can easily deploy a static front into an application or decentralized application while also running all your backend and everything inside the Arweave ecosystem. I think probably one of my favorite things about this is I believe that Arweave is the easiest bridge from Web 2 to Web 3 because I don't need to know Solidity. I don't need to know Rust. I mean, we can do a few things in Rust and things like that inside the Arweave ecosystem, but it is an amazing gateway for Web 2 developers to come in and start developing really cool, truly fully decentralized applications. And so that's pretty much major problems that we're solving, on top of the decentralized computation, all kinds of other stuff that's recently been announced.
I can maybe hop in from Mode's perspective on what I do, like kind of on a day-to-day basis. Again, well, one thing that I want to point out is that with time and as Mode grew and we've been changing the things that we're focusing on, that changes like every week, every month, because you need to stay on top of new trends or things that are happening and recognize mistakes and adjust for like your strategy in general, not only for DevRel. And I think that happens a lot in Web3, that we need to move super, super fast. At first, when we didn't have a lot of BD folks and growth and ecosystem, I would be doing a lot of BD, outreach, inbounds, and answering a lot of messages. Then I started rotating a little bit to be the tech guy that could also do BD. And slowly, they were also understanding like more things that I could do in the company, but that's what I did because that's where I saw I could bring the most value at that time. One thing I like to say, at least in general, is that I'm not here like at Mode to do DevRel. I'm not there to just like do my definition of DevRel, but rather what I think DevRel is, and fostering this great community of developers and enabling developers to work with Mode. And at least for Mode, we like to say that we want to turn solo developers into founders, right? And bring those hackathon projects into actual startups, because that's what I think developers need, right? I've seen so many great developers that know how to code, and they know how to use a lot of frameworks, they know how to build almost any application, but they are struggling a lot with growth, with marketing, with branding, with go-to-market strategies. And that's what we're kind of trying to help from Mode side. In our case, we're EVM compatible and built with the OP stack. So it's pretty easy to deploy if you know any other EVM chains. So you don't need, like, if you're already in Web3 and tested like Ethereum or other OP chains, Base or whatever, it's pretty easy to get into the ecosystem and the tech side of it. But then, yeah, that's what I see. I see a lot of developers struggling with like other parts of creating a company and stuff. So yeah, that's kind of my day-to-day right now, is thinking of how we can improve that and help developers on board easier to building projects, not just like random applications.
I would have to agree with you because I guess this also loops into the previous question where we talked about our definition of DevRel, and you said your role is ever evolving. Currently, you fit into this role best because you can provide the value here the most. But I do believe that the role of a DevRel eventually evolves into something else. Like I remember Samina from Third Web kind of transitioning into more of a developer PM role after uh, Third Web did not need a DevRel per se because their onboarding got so easy because of the documentations and the video tutorials that she eventually turned into a PM. Now, coming on to the current question, at Stackr, our world is a little different because it being a modular SDK, it's a roll-up framework. We help people build app-specific roll-ups, and the best part about Stackr is that I don't have to do much devreling because everyone knows JS, and you can build on top of the Stackr SDK using JavaScript, right? So it is just setting the mental models right once, for which I'm creating content and for which there is the documentation, which is pretty easy to go through. But not much devreling in its true essence is needed because everything is just so easy to onboard to. Kanish, you can go next.
For sure. So Fleek is an on-chain cloud platform. Our job is to make sure that whatever you are building as a dev or as a product or as like a founder, it is edge optimized, it is extremely performant, and you as a founder or as a developer should not worry about the DevOps of the entire equation. You should focus on building business logics. You should focus on building absolutely scalable applications, because most of that amazing technology is handled by us on the back end. So therefore, we recently launched something called Fleek functions, which are edge functions that are deployed on Fleek, which can essentially plug and play into any data origin that you may have. So that could be RWave, that could be IPFS, it could be any data origin. And essentially, Fleek picks it up, caches it around the network, and then any application that is using that edge function gets the benefit of Fleek. So while I was, bringing up these narratives and while I was working to make sure that devs understand this, one spicy take that I found right away was that the number of devs who know React versus the number of devs who know JavaScript is extremely different. So you can still know React, you can know JSX. Let me put it this way. You can know JSX, but how does JavaScript event loop actually works? What is promises? What is async await? These are things that I've found developers still have a weak foundation on. In one of my conferences, I remember saying that, async await is just sugar on top of promises. And devs were like, what does that mean? And then I had to, shift my workshop. So I felt that these are some issues that we try to solve to make sure that on a foundational level, not just developers, but even founders get a technical foundation onto what they are doing and they can understand and build products better. I would agree with Federico here and say that a big part of my job and the problem that we are trying to solve is to just help people build better products. Hackathons are a big part of that. And I do share this with Anmol a lot, but I would like to share this with everybody that each time we judge a hackathon, we share, okay, man, we see 200 submissions, 150 of those are NFT minting applications built on top of IPFS. Now, how do we move beyond that? So we find the best founders through those hacks and we try to nurture them. And this is another thing, where I actively put myself into to make sure that whatever skills I've gained over the past years can actually translate into building better tech. Not the Fleek tech, but the tech that Fleek can power. So that's what I would say the kind of problems are exist that we are trying to solve, and what Fleek is. So yeah, back to you, Naruto. Move us forward.
No, yeah, so I definitely agree with all the points here, especially what Kanish said and what Federico said. So those are like really good points. Um, Again, like I'll just tell what Avail does. Avail is basically a unification layer for Web3. A lot of people think like, Avail DA is the only thing that we have, but what they don't realize is that we have two bigger projects, which are Avail Nexus and Avail Fusion. So Avail Nexus is, think of it like as a verification hub for all the CK rollups, or like any rollup as actually, which basically uh, have which basically fights the UX fragmentation or liquidity fragmentation. This is very important for the whole ecosystem because you have so many rollups going on that there's such a big liquidity fragmentation that we need to curb, right? And then we have like Avail Fusion, which is basically for crypto economics. Really love that idea. It's probably for the later stages, but kind of like, you can take from BTC, you can take from ETH, and you can stake it on Avail Fusion. So that's what we are doing. And, doing all the DevRel stuff here. I think I'm at a very great position where I can help companies, partner projects build on top of Avail. Moving on to a very spicy question, and this is one of my favorite questions. This is just why I want to, I don't know why I always ask this question to DevRel, but I really love this question. Do you think DevRels or head of DevRels, should code? Do you think people who are just doing community work, they're okay? People who are doing PD work, they can be considered DevRels? No. What are your thoughts? I would say Anmol go first, and then like Patrick, you can take over, and then we
So,
move on.
this is a question that Kanishk and Naruto and I already discussed a few days back, and I got shit on for my take. But let me just go ahead. So, from my end, this depends on the team size, definitely. But according to me, a head of DevRel should not regularly code. They should be more focused on kind of streamlining output of the team and kind of getting approvals from the leadership of the entire team's work and setting goals and making sure that those goals are being met. They're more of a DevRel manager and a team leader instead of a active person who contributes to repos. I mean, they should be in touch with code, but not the person that should be handling all the issues, right? You guys can disagree with me or agree with me, but coming from where I used to work, Polygon, where we had a multi-person DevRel team of up to 5 or 6 people, Tony, who used to be my manager, I saw him more of a firefighter or a problem solver more than a developer. So yeah,
Yeah.
moving on to Patrick. Yeah.
I think I'll kind of take the same take, and I'm going to kind of use the analogy of like basically like a military. If you're a officer of a small team or even just like a platoon, fuck yeah, you better get in the trenches. You're getting in the trenches, you're helping them out, you're helping them solve problems. And, and sometimes you got to kick the core engineers in the ass to make sure that they're helping the other DevRels or anything like that, get that content out, make sure the corrections are made so that we can put out content and then we're not getting bad feedback. It's like, well, this doesn't work. That's kind of part of it. So yeah, get in the trenches and do some coding. But then on a battalion level, and I'm just kind of associate, let's say I've got like 3 to 5 pretty solid DevRels. They're about mid-range, mid-level DevRels, something like that. I'm gonna do a lot less coding. I might do some coding and play around with things just so I can keep myself familiar on the weekends or whatever, which, I mean, let's be fucking realistic. We don't have weekends. We work through those too. And, but at the reality of the sense is like, you're not going to be spending a whole lot of time coding. Just like, Anmol said with Tony, you're putting out fires. You're trying to do the best you can to make sure you're supporting the team. But if you're always in the trenches, then nobody is there making sure that anything's being communicated to other leaders or other teams. So yeah, the higher you get or the larger the team goes, the less you code.
Okay,
Also, another thing I would like to add and kind of jump in between. I feel if a DevRel manager or a DevRel lead gets too deep into a daily output or a daily work, I feel team loses its sight, because obviously it's everyone is human. If a lead loses sight of what goals they have to achieve by the end of the quarter or by the end of the month, because of contributing too much to daily dev work, I feel that is bad.
Yeah, and this is something that I've talked to a lot of aspiring DevRels as well. They're like, dude, how do you code and match and also do this and also do that and be in Twitter spaces and events? And I'm like, dude, just think about it. A developer is 8 hours, it's higher than gets paid to be 8 hours coding. Of course, you're not 8 hours coding, but like most of your day for like weeks and weeks, you're coding and facing problems and learning more. There's no way I can keep up to the same level as a developer working full time on that. I have so many other responsibilities as a head of DevRel that it's literally impossible. So what I do have a hot take on this is I want us to start differentiating devs or people that maybe know one language or two or a framework versus software engineers or like a more well-rounded profile, right? I've been through the engineering career. I still need to finish my thesis, so I don't have a degree. I could be a dropout. I can tell you I'm rusty while coding. I know a little bit of C. I haven't touched a line of code in C for a long time, but I can help a developer go through the architecture of something or think about a problem and help them problem solve in almost any language, right? Like you know how to help them, because to me, a DevRel needs to understand the software development process. So as a DevRel, to me, the most important thing that you need to understand is not coding, but rather understanding the how software lives, how to develop software, how it works, how the relationship of the developer is while developing something, to understand that that bad code brings maintenance in the future and rework, and that costs a lot. And I don't know, advise companies in if they should hire a developer for their own company or if they should find a third party, like understanding how all of these parts play a role. And as Patrick said, sometimes like I found issues that I cannot solve, or I would need to spend 3 days looking into an issue, going into code, and I don't have the time for that. It doesn't make any sense. So what I do is just go to the engineering team and say like, guys, I need help with this, please. And I'll have to ping them 1 time, 2 times, because I know they don't want to do it. And to me, the DevRel is that layer protecting the engineers and developers from things that they shouldn't be asked or shouldn't be working on, right? So that's why I see DevRel like working with different departments and different sides of the company. Is I am the one that is going to define if the question you're asking is just a link to our docs and here's our RPC, or here's this, or it's just one line of code, versus, hey, I think we have a bug and there's something weird going on here. Please, we need an engineer looking into this. Yeah.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
So I have a very different take here than anybody. So I come from a very classic software engineering background. Started with Java apps, then went to Python, went to data analytics, then went to JavaScript, then went to Solidity, and then Rust. So I've been around the loop twice, thrice, and I've done my part there. So what I always say is that while yes, as you become the head of something, your job is to maintain a team behind you. Your job is to make sure that whoever are in your team, they should be happy and they should be guided properly. But if you are out of touch with what is happening in the tech world, then you're not really a dev anymore. You're just marketing. And we've seen that happen. One of my closest friends, he used to work at a layer one, and he went from being a software engineer to a community manager and a DevRel, and that was the last day he ever wrote a single line of code. To then, when he interviewed, he said, "Dude, I cannot even make an asynchronous JavaScript function in my interview, and I used to write scalable production code that had no conflicts ever in my job 2 years ago." And that gave me a slap on my face. And I thought, oh shit, can I make an asynchronous function? This is when I went out of loop. So then I realized that if I need to have dev in my job title, and if I have such a big part of who I am connected to being a developer, I need to code. Even if it's 5 minutes a day, even if it's one lead code problem in C++, that is not going to do me any good because nobody in Web3 asks DSA. But still, I need to do something. As Federico said, you need to have those logics. You need to make sure that architecturally you know what to do, even if you don't know the language. Languages can be picked up, right? But at the core of it, logics remain the same. And I always say that being a developer is a superpower, because what you can think, you can make. You lose your superpower the day you stop coding, and that is something I hope doesn't happen to a dev. Now, of course, it becomes more hectic when you become the head of something. That is a transition I felt for myself, but it's something you have to learn. It's just growing pains. The more you communicate with your own team, leadership, and the people under you, the better it is. I can see something is brewing up in the chat, so I will let Anmol take away the mic and mute myself. But yeah, that is my opinion. If you have DevRel in your title, please code at least some hours of your week.
So, first of all, I would like to say the previous two answers I would have to agree, and I relate with Freddy's answer because at Polygon, the core protocol team was guarded like anything. It was like a fortress around them, and you could not get to them. And the people that took the main shots or like inhaled the shots were basically the DevRel engineers, right? So moving on to the next question. What side of DevRel that exists that you do not like or you hate? So I would like to kick this off because I have a very spicy take here. And it is something that I hold very closely to me. It is that people that are hiring, aka founders, do not know what to expect from you, or in general, if they need a DevRel or not. The amount of times the expectations have been misaligned is a massive pain in the butt. It's so much because you have to go in and define what a DevRel does for them, regardless of you being hired already. So I think it is not a part of the role, but it is something that you inherently have to do every single time you're hired because the founder or the manager or the hiring manager is always misaligned on what their needs are versus what a DevRel does.
You see how
Moving
my
on to yeah,
you see how my
yeah,
mic is
Kanish.
already unmuted. The
Yeah.
reason for that is because when you hire a DevRel, it is sort of expected now that you would be jumping across things, because in your experience they see, okay, you've done XYZ things, you've been a dev, you've been somewhat of a community manager, you've been somewhat of a founders office person, all of that. So it is sort of expected that you need to find your way. And I also feel that a lot of companies in crypto are just startups, right? 10 people, 15 people at max. I've seen 50 people, but now if you talk about Polygon, that obviously eluded the startup realm. But I would say that usually also in startups, I've seen in Web2 startups, devs do a lot more than just coding. I've seen devs do marketing. I've seen they were bad at it, but they did it. So I've seen those kind of things happen. And I would say that while, yeah, misaligning of expectations can be absolutely horrible for both you as a DevRel and a founder, but somewhere or the other, aren't you like expected to jump through hoops and find your way? I would let others also give their take on this, although this is very spicy.
One thing I can tell is like a lot of companies, and this is not what I've experienced, but like I know that a lot of companies that are at the early stage who have not even probably built a test net yet, they are also hiring DevRels, and not just like one DevRel, but they're hiring like 3 or 4 DevRels. That's the red flag right there. This is because you do not have a test net that's working. You do not have a main net. it might be a year into the future, and the DevRel doesn't know what to do. Is he gonna host like events? If he's gonna host event, then call it an event manager, not a DevRel, right? If he's a community person, call it a community manager, not a DevRel. And if he's coding, then he's a coder or a technical writer. So that's a weirdest thing to me. But yeah, like happy to hear like what you guys think about it.
Um, I'm gonna add because I wanna talk about like what we hate about DevRel, right? We mentioned about how founders don't understand us, and sometimes I feel this is a hot take. You know how Scrum and Scrum Masters are like this cult. I used to be a Scrum Master, and so just know this. Like I got the title assigned. I didn't want it, right? But like Scrum is kind of a cult. One of the rules is basically teach the rest of the company about Scrum and show them how much better it is than any other system, right? And I think with DevRel, we're falling into the same kind of thing where it's this thing that we can barely define. Each company has its own definition. Founders don't get it, but they think they want it, right? Like it's hot. Everyone's hiring for it. We think we need it. And I would love to hop into like why we need DevRel and why it's so big in Web3. Like later on, I think we can talk about that. But it's become this thing of like, oh, everyone else is getting a DevRel. I should get a DevRel as well. I don't even know why. They don't differentiate between a solutions engineer, someone that needs to help with integrations. Do I need someone technical for my BD outreach or inbound? Do I need a technical writer specifically for documentation? All of these things, it's better to hire one guy that probably can be handling a little bit of everything, right? So yeah, that's what I kind of think. And I do have a question to add here is that, do you guys think that DevRel should know marketing as well?
100%.
I would say yes. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I'll jump in because I'll help bridge with that question too. Yeah, I mean, we're coding and stuff like that, but I think one of the hardest things and one of the reality checks that people need to have before they even get into DevRel is you have to flip flop between being an introvert and an extrovert constantly every single day, multiple times. So there are times where you're in the coding terminal, you're building some tutorials, you're setting up some sort of video tutorial or writing a blog or technical articles, anything like that. Maybe you're updating documentation. Okay, so that's kind of the introverted side. And then the flip side is like, you got to be extrovert. You got to be the one that's out there helping with hackathons, and you got to be out there, creating some of this content and engaging with people that are engaging with your content, helping those people that are asking questions about your content. So, I mean, you're flipping back and forth constantly. And that's probably one of the hardest reality checks. And I do have that. This is kind of the big point too, is like, a lot of people make DevRel kind of like the face to the product. I don't think that's necessarily right. I think you should definitely be a face within the product, but you shouldn't be the face of the product, because we end up kind of converging and finding ourselves almost like becoming devfluencers more so than actual DevRels. And to be perfectly honest, there is a total use case of being a DevRel where you're more devfluencer than anything, but that's like on a multi-person team. You're not the one that's going to be running solo and doing all this other crazy stuff and then also being devfluencer at the same time. That's going to get ridiculous after a while. And so what you're going to end up needing to do is, like, if you want somebody that's a little bit more of a face and they're doing stuff like the video content, they're writing the articles and they're engaging with people, absolutely. But at the same time, if you're spending too much as a face, man, DevRel is one of those things that it's so easy to burn out just because of that introvert extrovert flip flop constantly. So that's kind of my hot take on it.
I'm just gonna say one thing. And this is from the last question. DevRels, I don't know much about, like, head of DevRel. Okay, you're at the manager level, but if you're a DevRel, you need to be coding. I'll just say that that's because the idea, like, a lot of people glamorize, and this is a bad side of DevRel as well, is that a lot of people glamorize the idea of being a DevRel because it's an easy job to get, right? But that's not right, because once you get into the job, you realize that there's a product architecture. There are things that you never knew about. Every product is different. Every chain is different. Every rollup or every DA layer is different, right? Every ZK rollup is different. So you need to know all those things as well. And that's why you need to be coding. If any question comes from your integration partners, how are you going to answer it? If you have not coded yourself, like you don't need to code like everything, but like, you need to know why this error comes up. And that's like the one thing I wanted to talk about, like, bad side of being a DevRel, or like, if DevRels need to code. But yeah, marketing is definitely needed. Totally on board on that.
So one question, one impromptu question I would like to throw out there is, especially someone like Patrick who's been here for a while and like in the industry, I see two type of DevRels, as mentioned, DevRel influencer, but how to separate your personality from your organization, like by being a good DevRel, shilling maybe here and there, but how to not make your organization your personality. And I think I have a few example of who have done it well. One being Nader, and second being Jared from Polygon. And he's a friend of mine. I've worked with him for a couple of months at Polygon. But I would like to get all of your takes on how to not make your organization your personality.
I'll jump in and say that with Natter too, and the main example for Natter is like he could be working for a specific company. The dude still creates like random tutorials on the most random shit ever, and like I think it was just before he was Eigenlayer, or he was maybe already on Eigenlayer. He had a tutorial for like WorldCoin and stuff like that. Like it's just out there, and he specifically states that he just likes to build. He just likes to mess with stuff and see what he can do with it. And that's just super interesting. And I think that's why there's such a love for him, because there's a lot of genuinity in there. There's just like authenticity really behind that, because yes, he works for X, but then still kind of messes with Y every now and then. And it's not that he's not really causing like a conflict of interest or anything. He's just being curious. And I think that's probably, if you really want to differentiate, and a lot of us, became DevRels and we like teaching. And so there's like that crossroad. And we became curious, and and because of our curiosity, that's how we found ourselves as DevRels. So as long as you maintain that curiosity and keep exploring, and then continue to teach what you've explored, I think that's the way to really maintain your authenticity as a DevRel.
I would say shout out to Rahat from like kind of kicking off Protocol Explorer. I think he's doing a great job. Like I think tomorrow he has a session with Naruto and QEDK about Avail. He's exploring a bunch. He's learning from every session himself, and he's simultaneously teaching it to everyone else. So I think shout out to Rahat. He's doing a great job at it.
He's great.
I agree.
Yeah.
Shout out to Rahat as well.
For real. Even though one of the first teachings that I got from my mentor was the fact that, hey, make sure that your Twitter account does not become a poster account for your own company. You are a person, you got hired, that's great, but do always share things that are personal to you, that are important to you, and that you are as a person. You being a DevRel is great, but you are also a person on the internet. So, time and again, I go to my feed on Twitter and I look, okay, how many tweets did I share about things that I'm working on? It could be work related, could not be work related. But how many of those were just poster tweets? How many of those were shit posting? I love to shit post. And I share a lot of memes online. And I feel that people engage a lot with that as well. I would hate to be an influencer, but if I can just be somebody who can slide into conversations like this and just talk to devs and just talk to people, not even devs, I think I've done my part. And that is exactly what I want to do in life. So, focusing on what you are, who you are, also with what your job is very important. Because believe it or not, people will look up to you when you keep coming on podcasts like this, when you keep explaining them things online, they will look up to you. And therefore, it is important that while you talk about things you work on, you also share a personal side. And that's also a good thing. Yes, I think Naruto's online. Yes.
Yeah, I think I agree with Kanish, because a lot of time I share tweets from other companies. Last time I think I shared one with the last L2, they're building something really crazy and their marketing is really good on point, right? So my whole idea here is like you need to, like have take care of your personal brand, not just personal brand, but you also need to like, share about things you're really curious, genuinely curious about. Build something, shill it, or like just put it out in the public. And then finally, like shit posting. I love doing it, and that's because shit posting is so much easier as compared to going through docs for a company and then building something. I'm in the gym, I got a random thought, I'll just put it out there. So that's why. But yeah, Federico, you have something, go on. I'm ready for your hot take.
Fede had something to continue off of that, and then
Yeah,
I'll get super spicy.
I'm ready to start throwing some real hot takes. So I hate and I despise that people confuse DevRel with Devfluencer. I don't think it's the same, not even close. A Devfluencer is someone that uploads content, tutorials, builds their own community, and maybe tries to teach devs, but they also make deals with brands to promote those brands. It's more of promoting and more of like a KOL. I would compare it in like crypto terms, like what we use, versus a DevRel. A DevRel really connects with people, really builds a community, works on the product as well, helps with feedback to the engineering team. A Devfluencer has nothing like that, right? That's one thing that I would like for us to start separating that, because I've told so many people that I'm a DevRel and they're like, oh, you're kind of famous and you're here, you're there. I'm like, no, I am showing my face in spaces like this, but because I enjoy discussing these topics, it helps with my personal brand, and it also helps with my company's name, which is my next point of what we were discussing, is that yes, it's not easy to separate your personality from the company you're working at. And I think that's a mistake that's made when you started looking for a job at DevRel. If you said yes to a company that you didn't like that much, or that you didn't agree with the vision and mission, then it's your fault that you'll end up tying your personality to that company. And that's the only thing that you'll have to share in the future. And that's why people will only know you for that. In my case, I've chosen Mode because I really believe in the whole product mission and vision. I don't think we're going to change the world, but I do love what we're building. And I'm okay with defending anyone that comes and tells me, do we really need another layer 2? And I'm like, yes, we need Mode. I think we need Mode. And I think what we're building is great. It's not revolutionary tech, but we're on a space that I think it's great. And I don't mind walking with my Mode t-shirt around because I love it, right? Now, tomorrow there are layoffs and I don't have a job anymore at Mode. I'm okay. I've connected with so many protocols. I've connected with so many people. Thanks to me having that title of head of DevRel at Mode. It enables me to go to conferences, to connect with other people, to do networking by having the name and a title on a company that I enjoy. So if you manage to merge those things and your whole personality is not just your job, but you have your own takes and your own view of stuff, and you push your company with the values that you have, then I think people will not just see you by that company. That's my hot take. Let's see, Patrick.
I agree and disagree. Okay, so my agreement is don't ever take a job for a product that you don't genuinely believe in, 100%. And it makes it so hard for your job to just sit there and push a product that you probably don't agree with or hate or something like that. Genuinely believe in the product. And to be honest, I completely understand that there are people that are in situations that say, I really need a job, so I'm going to try to get this job or whatever. Try to find something that you really believe in, for sure. Now, the Devfluencer part, I 100% believe that it is okay if it happens organically. Natter probably never asked to become a Devfluencer, but for sure, he's probably number one, number two top Devfluencers in the Web3. But he would never call himself that. That kind of happened organically. And going back to it, it's based on authenticity. He was very authentic. People gravitated to him, and that's why people just honestly just kept gravitating to him, loved his tutorials. Didn't matter where he was, shooting at and teaching or anything, even if it was related to the company he was working for or not. Doesn't matter. So the Devfluencer part, as long as you're not cringe and like it's obvious you're pushing the devfluencer side but it happens authentically, then a devfluencer is devfluencer. It's going to happen, and by all means, yes, the people are going to follow you from one company to another company. That's going to happen, whether you like it or not. If you're really good at your job and you're authentic, you're going to become a devfluencer. Point blank.
Yeah. Even just to add on to the two more lines, I know we are getting close to the finish line here. But the second you sort of start becoming a influencer, the social responsibility on you increases 10 times. Because now, each time you push something to GitHub, there are 800 people watching that commit, and they are waiting to spot inconsistencies. It has happened to me. My code went on production, my contracts went on production. It's like, this idiot cannot find integer leakage. This idiot cannot find private variables he's pushing to his GitHub repository. And I saw that happen and I worked through it. And that's like me with almost no followers. And I realized that, hey, when you get to a level of somebody like Nader who has like 150K, and that means eyes are on you. So the responsibility increases, and you must make sure that you stand on to that. Back to Naruto.
Okay, guys. Because we're nearing time, so I'm just gonna ask you, some final questions. The one is like, if there are like 4,000 people listening to us right now. There are people probably looking for the jobs, thinking to switch to DevRel. So, what are like some of your favorite recommendations, tip, or like how people should prepare for their first job as a DevRel? And then from there, we can move to like that next follow-up question, and you can like answer it collectively. Is that what is the interview process should look like for DevRels? Do you think like there should be a coding round for the orgs, or do you think like there should be some take home? What do you think about these? So they're like two questions, but feel free to answer.
I'm going to jump in right away on this because there's something about the interview, and this is back to that like super spicy take. Okay, this is a problem that isn't just DevRel. Obviously, it's for developers, it's for marketing or whatever. For developers specifically, and this is I feel like it's more emphasized for DevRels. Stop fucking lowballing on salaries just because they're not in the United States. That shit bothers me so much, and it's because think of it as a DevRel. Yes, okay, as a DevRel, maybe it's cheaper for me to live in a different country or something, or because I'm from a different country. I hate to say this, dude. A MacBook is worth a MacBook. Doesn't matter what country you're in. That Sony camera that I'm using right now is the same price. Doesn't matter if I'm in the United States, if I'm in China and Philippines. Doesn't fucking matter. Stop lowballing fucking DevRels. I hate that shit because honestly, we got people from like Nigeria. Honestly, Yinka is sexy videos, and he's in Nigeria. And then you've got other people that are in the Philippines. You got people in Turkey. You've got people in China. You got people in India just dropping fire videos. And to be perfectly honest, like I think quite a few of those videos are significantly better than mine. And yet I'm probably sure that I get paid more than them. And I fucking hate that. The fact that they have to work so much harder to create good content simply because they are lowballed and can't afford the exact same equipment that I can is atrocious. So if you're a founder, if you're a CEO and you're hiring people, stop that shit because they're worth so much more. And what's going to happen is when people realize they're worth more, they're going to get freaking sniped from you because you didn't value that person what they're really worth. That's my super hot take. I fucking hate that.
I love this.
100% agree. I think we can end it here.
This is a mic drop. No, I definitely agree with you. A lot of companies I talk to, they're like, "Oh, we're hiring from India," and then they pay like $30,000. It doesn't make sense.
100%.
I would say, having worked with Yinka, having worked with a lot of people across the globe at Fleek, I would say that this is something that I really loved about the culture and what really attracted me as well to the team itself. That, hey, there's equality all over the table and there's no hierarchies as such. You get a name because you have to show something on paper. But if you showed you can work, that's it. You have the skill, you get paid for it. Degrees are not that, and that is another thing that I really like because education varies a lot. In India versus in America, a college, what do you get taught in America is so much different. And it does not matter because across the globe, if you're making a React app, you're making a React app. If you can make a good React app, that's it. That's the end of the equation. So that's a beautiful take. And I'm really thankful you brought that up.
Yeah, honestly, the majority of the people that I do freaking coding tutorials on are from freaking India, man. I mean, like, my favorite people that I
Bro.
follow are straight up dropping fire in India, and like, I'm like, man, I mean, where do I tip this guy? Give me his fucking wallet, because I mean, this dude is worth it. And I freaking hate that they just constantly, get lowballed. And so, honestly, if I think that needs to become an industry standard, we need to stop this whole dude. If the United States even needs to lower it about 20%, just so we can pay everybody fucking evenly, let's do it, man. Because I'm so tired of that.
So I,
Whenever
I, I
there's
have a hot take. I
go
have a
for it.
hot take here,
Go for it.
Patrick. Um, so there is pay normalization and there is basically regional pay. Why I do advocate for regional pay sometimes, while it being fair pay, is because a company needs to be sustainable. The cost of living someplace else is a way, like, if I live in SF, it is way higher as compared to if I live in somewhere in India, right? And if a company is actually trying to be sustainable and have a long roadmap, sustain their runway, it needs to have that pay parity. That does not mean you lowball people, but it does mean having pay parity helps the company be more or run more in a realistic manner.
Yeah,
Also, I am not
I
on a
agree.
regional pay. I would like to mention that.
Yeah. No, so I mean, I agree with that to an extent, but at the same time, when you have two dudes on the same team, where one guy is in the United States and he's pretty much doing the exact same work as another person that's in India, their pay should be the same. I don't give a shit. I mean, if they're both creating content, or if they're both doing tutorials, if they're doing documentation management, BD, I don't care. If they're on the same team, then at that point, dude, like, instead of paying one dude 200,000 and then paying the other dude 90,000, dude, just pay him a flat 150. I mean, let's be real. And to be honest, both parties should know about that, and should actually, be advocated. And yes, I understand that cost of living in the United States is more expensive. I understand cost of living in parts of India is cheaper, but it goes back to like equipment management. It comes back to production. It comes back to all the tools that you have to use. Doesn't matter what country you're in, you still have to pay the same price. And so at the end of the day, there should be some sort of equitable balance in that. Doesn't matter where you live.
I would like to add a few things here. One is mentioning that Yinka was part of our Mode Ambassador program, and I have right now 5 people in there. 3 of them are Nigerian. One of them is from Colombia, and the other one, I don't know where he's from. And what we're doing there, so going back to like how to get a job in DevRel as well, like, and mentioning that a little bit, what I'm doing there, I'm alone in this, I'm just trying to help them, is like, basically they come in, I don't care where they're from, but they get the same level of treatment to anyone else, right? So if your English is not your native language, like my case, if your writing is not good in English, I'm going to point that out. And I've told every friend that I have here from Argentina and Latam is, first of all, learn English. You need to be able to communicate correctly to all your peers, because if your language barrier is an issue, then you're not gonna make it, man. Like, you're gonna get discriminated, and I hate that. And I've worked with people that it was hard to communicate, but it's something that you need to understand, that, as Patrick said, sometimes being from a certain country forces you to make 2 times the effort, like, or even more. And I've seen this happen, and it really happens. It's not something that we think it's happening, right? And I hate it. And that's why also, like, with the ambassador program, for example, Yinka was part of it, and he decided to leave at some point. I was like, awesome, you graduated, man. Like, I just helped you a little bit to get confidence, and you're killing it with the videos. Just please keep posting, and don't let some random people rejecting you convince you that you're less than the others. Fuck that. We're in an industry that we can push and work globally. Then let's take advantage of that, and let's come to a common ground, right? Like, English is my second language. It is harder for me to do some things, but I trained it. I can manage it now, and I will not take like worse treatment than someone from the US or whatever. Luckily for me, I haven't seen that for myself. And this is another hot take for Latam folks, and I know it happens a lot in India as well. The people that have not really put me to the standard or think that my job is not that good or that I work at a place that is not good when I tell them what I do, they're mostly from Latam or Argentinians. When I tell them, oh yeah, in Spanish, I work at Mode, I do this, I do that, and they're like, okay, whatever. And then I have to tell them, oh, but Mode is from the UK. Like our founder, he's from the UK, and we have 700 million TVL and this and that. And then they are like, oh, you work in an international company. I'm like, dude, what does it matter? Like, I know so many Argentinians that are making shitloads of money and helping a lot the ecosystem, and it has nothing to do where they're from, right? So I think it's something we need to change. And the last thing I'll say, because we're over time now, is that I finished my whole college in engineering thanks to Indian YouTubers posting about topics that I've never seen anywhere else.
Exactly same.
The shittiest video quality, audio quality like shit, but I was like, this is gold. Like, you're saving my life here with this video. I cannot even tell you how many cases I've looked around, and the only thing I could find was that Indian dude with a horrible video that was like gold, and I'm like, yeah, this is the thing that we need to promote, right?
Those were like data structure questions. Exactly same. A lot of my friends, they're like, "Oh, I was listening to this guy doing data structure, and he suddenly transitioned from English to Hindi, and I couldn't understand." I'm like, "Yep, exactly that."
No,
Okay.
at the end of the day, founders should never shop in different countries because they're on a budget. That should not be the reason you shop in
Yep.
different countries.
I would
You shop you shop in different countries because you're looking for a community that you or a person that can support a community within that region or something like that, or simply because dude, if Fede and I interviewed against each other and they just found that Fede was better fit for the company, doesn't matter. That's the guy you hire. I don't care where you're at, and that's what it should be like.
Absolutely. I would even say thank you, Fede, for training and just helping Yinka out in his initial days because he's a gem.
Dude, I
So
did shit. He's awesome. I just told him keep going. That's it.
Yeah. Okay. So if like I know Fede, you probably have a call. Um, if you want to leave, feel free to. I just have one last follow up question with everyone. But thanks a lot, Fede, to be here. Love your takes here. Loved your takes here.
Thank you, Fede.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Fede,
Yeah.
Okay, so one last question for you guys, and like I don't want to overextend it because I know like everyone has things to do today. Final thing is, if someone were to be looking for the job, what are your like final recommendations, tips, and how should they prepare for the interview? I can go
So
on and on for this, but I would love for you guys to like take some, give some feedback here.
I think I'll hop on this because I think I talked to Rahat about this, and it was it is kind of a mixture of why do you want a DevRel job more than how do you want to prepare, because I feel people who want to become a DevRel kind of somewhat know internally that they might fit into this role, uh, keeping aside the other incentive that they might think it is you get to travel, you get to basically talk to developers all day, which is untrue. There is a lot of grunt work, but I feel that when you are preparing for a DevRel role, you should ask yourself this question: that do you like to teach? Do you like to be an educator? And do you think you have this innate ability to kind of explain really complex topics in a simple manner without losing their technical essence? I feel if you can answer this question with an honest yes from inside you, great, go ahead. You are kind of, from my end, ready to interview for being a DevRel. And another thing is, I know this was a question that we kind of skipped over, but yeah, I feel that a basic coding test is necessary while interviewing a DevRel. Another thing I would like to add, which is a kind of a good test for a DevRel, is everyone messes up in live coding or like live workshop sessions, right? I feel a workshop round should exist. Like, imagine I'm interviewing with Patrick, and I'm like, he gives me a task of prepare this topic up. This is what AO or RV is working upon right now. You have 4 days. Give me a presentation on how this would work or a live coding round on this. I feel that is a good way to judge a DevRel, because that is when you'll be representing your company or your protocol publicly. And whether you like it or not, you are a public face of that org. One of the public faces, as Patrick said.
I would just jump in there and say, of course, you should have one sort of live coding round, workshop round, whatever. But the thing is that you must always keep a very close eye on the job description, because as an organization grows, you have a big team of DevRels. You may not be the one they would push for workshops because they have that particular area sorted out. You may be somebody working on dev tooling. You may be somebody solely working on open sourcing. And therefore, it is very important that if you are, for example, somebody interviewing to become a DevRel and the job description says that focus on open source, then try to make yourself more active on that front. So reading the job description, making sure you are in touch with the existing DevRel team and understanding their day-to-day workflow is also very important. Otherwise, you'll join, thinking you'll rock it on your first day, and you are handed off something that you don't really want to do or don't really know how to do. Both of these things can be worked around, but in a growing organization, these are some things I would give an advice to every DevRel or joining DevRel to keep in mind and make sure that you train yourself for the role. Over to you, Patrick.
Yeah, so my first thing that I always recommend for DevRels to do, especially if this is going to be, maybe their first role or something like that, don't just be interviewed, interview the company. And that's super important because you need to know full and well what you're getting into. If you're picking up a solo DevRel role, dude, you need to make sure you understand very clearly what that founder, CEO, or whoever you're reporting to, expects from you. And if those expectations aren't set before you even hired, then that's the easiest way to get hired, to be a jack of all trades and then be fired because you're a master of none. That's the easiest way for that to happen. So always make sure that you come with confidence into your interview, be interviewed, but then also interview back. You need to make sure that you set those standards right off the bat. And trust me, if you come in there with that confidence and you're asking the right questions and you're saying, this is what's expected of me, this is what is not expected of me, where does the middle of the road kind of meet between me and BD, me and marketing, things like that. So, make sure you have very clear guidelines and understanding of what your role is going to be. So make sure you're always interviewing back as you're being interviewed. That's my big advice for being interviewed as a DevRel.
Yeah, I think the final thing from me, and I agree with most of the points here, is like you need to be confident for sure, but you need to have like a little bit of like, proof of work. You've done some similar stuff. You're excited about the product, you're excited about the community, and why the company would benefit if you're there, you can tell like 10 different things that you're good at, but like there should be a special thing that why this company specifically chooses you over 10 other applicants, right? And then the final thing is like coding, sure, it may, you may get rusty while you're at work, you're working, but for any day you're starting to interview, there will be coding rounds. So you need to know like at least a little bit of it. Like, for example, some array questions, some sorting, how it works out, some kind of, I think, system designs, all those different things. Those are like the basic things for a dev or a DevRel. But yeah, that's pretty much it from my side. I think we have covered most of the questions, and we are actually 15 minutes over time. So if there are any final remarks, and honestly saying, I loved having you guys today. It was actually the hot takes that I've been, like looking forward to. So Kanishk and Mol, Ferry, Patrick, thank you for being here. Love the chat. If you have anything, final thoughts, please put out, and then I'll end the stream.
I would say the only reason this was a hot takes is because we did not have a legal team telling us what to say or what not to say. So that is another hot take. And I would like to end it by loved having a chat with you guys. I would, to everyone who's trying to be a DevRel pro, do not stop having fun. Don't take shit too seriously. Just keep having fun.
I would have to say that I've worked on different teams, developers, marketing. I've done a little bit of everything in my career, and I would have to say, it's talked about a lot. DevRel's hard, but at the end of the day, I would have to say that DevRel is also the most supportive community you can find yourself in. All of these guys that I'm chatting with now, they're all in a Telegram group that I can sit there and I can ask vulnerable questions. I can be really open with them and say, dude, I feel like I fucked this up. How do I fix this? You can't really do that with developers because there's kind of like this pecking order kind of like thing, and everybody's afraid to like admit to when they've made a major mistake or anything like that. That's engineering and developers. DevRel, man, I mean, we're open with all of each other. We're helping each other out constantly. I have meetings constantly just talking about video and video setups and studio setups and how do I plan for video content, things like that. And these are guys that I'm probably technically working against sometimes, as far as like trying to get developer attention and building my community and everything. But at the end of the day, we support each other very much. So as hard as the role can be, I wouldn't have it any other way. The developer community is the best, or DevRel community.
I think to sum it up, the only line I have is that DevRel is a difficult job, but it's the most fun job I've ever had. It's the best friends I've ever made. It's the most longing relationships I've ever created, and I would, as Patrick said, wouldn't have it any other way. Proof here is that I'm meeting him for the first time, and this was so much fun, right? So just keeping that in mind, make sure that you prep. Even though we had a lot of fun, we shared a lot of stories. If you're interviewing, please prep hard. You can hit us up. We'll obviously help you out. And see you all on the other side. Thank you so much.
All right, guys.
I think that was a pretty
Thanks
good
a lot.
ending. Yeah.
Yep, that was
Thank
a
you,
pretty
folks.
good ending for the hot takes. We didn't fight a lot, Thanks for being here. I'm gonna be ending the stream. I think I forgot to take a screenshot, but that's fine. I'll take it from the recording. Thanks a lot.